Welcome to Awesome Artsy Moms. My name is Ann Walsh, and today my guest is Katie Nolan. She is an economic developer with a background in rural development and food system sustainability. In 2019, she was recognized as the Economic Developer of the Year by the Ontario East Economic Development Commission. I know Katie because she's a mom. She has two sons the same ages as my daughters, and there's a lot of overlap when we're out and about. When it's not COVID days and we're out doing our thing, we bump into each other quite a bit. Speaking of COVID, recently, Katie and local artist Meredith Luce published this book right here, COVID. I don't know if you can see it. COVID pandemic, can you see it? In 17 syllables. It's a collection of poems, and I read it and I loved it, and I just can't wait to dive into this interview. So thank you for joining me today, Katie.
Thanks for the invitation, Anne. It's great to talk to you.
So I read your book in like one day. I sat and I just read through the whole book, and I went through so many emotions, partly because it was fresh, but also because, we're going through this second lockdown. And I thought it takes a lot of talent to fit these strong emotions into 17 syllables. So there's a lot of talent there. I didn't even know you were a writer. So what did you write before this?
I've always been a bit of a writer. I've probably been journaling since I was 11 or 12 years old. And I've written fiction. I've experimented with different styles. I've written a couple of novels. I haven't written a lot of poetry in my adult life, but it's interesting because I did, with other local mom, Erica Kukuro, a couple of years ago, do the National Novel Writing Month challenge. And both of us wrote novels. And mine was a novel about sort of a post-apocalyptic world that included a pandemic. And so I'm not like, I am not saying I made this happen, but it was just interesting to have imagined, something like that. And then to compare what a real pandemic is like. So I've always been writing as a pretty natural instinct for me, but it's not often that I put it out there. So that's been a real shift for me with this project.
So what made you decide to write about COVID?
And it was interesting when I heard that question. The word decide did not come into it at all. I didn't make any decisions. It just started to happen. And the beginning of the pandemic was just so intense for everybody. And I think in times like that, we reach to the strategies and the tools that we have. And for me, writing is a big part of that. So it just started to spill out. And here we are.
Yay! I'm glad it spilled out the way it did. So were you writing about it before you started posting on Facebook? And if not, what inspired you to share them?
I had probably started to write a little bit before I started posting, and the first poems that I wrote were fairly lighthearted, and there was a little bit of giggly kind of vibe to them, and it's pretty easy to share something like that when we're all going through the same experience, and it's easy to laugh at ourselves, so I just sort of got in a habit, and people enjoyed them. And I found that it would start discussion with people as I started to write poems about different topics. And that just has really kept that conversation, if you will, has been ongoing since March. And I think that's really propelling me to keep going. And there are just so many things to say
Mm.
and to notice and to think about what we're going through that I'm not running into a lack of material yet.
And there's more coming. So,
There's much more to come. Yeah.
yes. So I mentioned before that there are lots of emotions in this book, contained in the book. And so I was wondering, was writing cathartic for you? Was that the main sort of function? Was just catharsis?
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think that the haiku style really lends itself to catharsis very well
Mm.
because it's too
Mhm.
short.
Mhm.
And it's really meant to be a more reflective style. And it's in that I would say it has not really felt cathartic to me to write in this style, but it's what is interesting is when you have hundreds of opportunities to write a tiny reflective snapshot, and then you can see how that whole picture has come together. It's almost like you don't know what it's going to be until you finish.
Yeah.
And so the that's been kind of interesting, and I think for a lot of what we're facing right now as we go through the pandemic, there really is no catharsis. There are major concerns, fears, challenges that have yet to be resolved. And some of those are related to just getting through the pandemic. And some of those are related to some of those deeper societal challenges that we've now shone a spotlight on. And we're going to have to get to work fixing those, maybe a bit more than we were before. And so, um, just being able to say something about that has been helpful. It doesn't solve the problem, but I think haiku is a very meditative, non-judgmental style. It just shows what is happening without trying to change it, without trying to um, shift it or alter it in any way. And so for that reason, it's been a bit of a different experience as a process than some of the other creative stuff that I've done.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah, I could see that. It's very, it's almost very factual. It just puts it, you know, 17 syllables, just the facts.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's hard to squish it all into those 17 syllables. But then again, I think, well, I've got many more opportunities. Let's just have that one tiny little pinpoint. And
Yeah.
then, you can explore an issue in different ways in multiple poems. And that's happened as well.
So you explore the therapeutic impact of nature in your book. What has been your experience with nature?
I think for so many of us, being outside has been um, such a fundamentally important part of our lifestyle in getting through this. It's a place where we feel safe, where we have a little bit more leeway in terms of connecting with others. It's it's where our food comes from, and so this whole you know sort of subtext about nourishment and food security, can a lot of people really turn to gardening this year as a great safe outdoor activity, but also a way for them to reconnect with their food.
Mm.
And I found we were noticing at the beginning of the pandemic that nature seemed so much closer as the traffic calmed down and things became human population kind of settled down a little bit. You could hear the birds more loudly. We
Mhm.
were seeing animals that we never used to see, sort of, in and around our community. And it's also, nature is also like the outdoors is such a classroom for kids. And so I found that my kids have, in the spring, we took a walk almost every single day, and they found, probably half a dozen different places that where they could find snakes and frogs and toads and stuff like that, and getting to know their own environment in a different way than they were before. So I think it's really been a huge part of the daily routine, and it's served so many different functions. There are places in this community, outdoor trails, where I used to feel like I could go there and feel assured of being alone. And now, everyone is discovering these assets and these places, and which is amazing. So it's definitely been something also that keeps things in perspective. There have been days that are hard. We've all had them. We've all had many of them. And being able to be outside and hear the birds and watch a tree as its leaves change color really has a great way of putting those kinds of things in perspective, and just helping you to put one foot in front of the other and get to the next day.
Yes. So you pose the question, what is essential? How would you answer that at this point?
Well, that term, I don't know if we'll ever look at that term the same way after
No.
this. It's, I think that one of the things that has become clear for me is that what is essential is a tiny, tiny subset of what we spend our time thinking about and working on every day. And it's been a real awakening, I guess, to how we prioritize activity and energy use in our lives, and which of those things is really fundamental. I think that what's essential for us in our day-to-day life is maybe a different question than what's essential in society. And that's been a very challenging concept, because I think that we've all been confronted with the ugly reality that some of our most essential aspects of, a peaceful and equitable society are very fragile. And we might need to think about a reprioritization. So the idea of what's essential has been a really tough challenge for me, as my own lifestyle has changed and seeing the world around me change. Because I think there's one poem in there that tries to differentiate or ask the question, what are the essentials the same as what makes life worth living? And
Yes.
I'm still sort of struggling with that one, but also how the pandemic broke into some people that have been on a massive marathon since the beginning, relentless demands on them, and others who have been completely disempowered, disengaged, because their activities are, sort of don't fall into that. And it's I myself have really struggled with feeling pretty powerless, that those of us who are in the hunkering down subset of the population are not able to do much to help the others. And I know that what they tell us is what you can do is stay home. And that's great, but it's hard. We're such an action oriented, driven society that sometimes it's hard to accept that. So yeah, I'm still struggling with that whole concept of essentiality, and what that means now and what it's going to mean when we come out of this.
Yes. Yeah. We might have a new interpretation.
I think so. Yeah.
I love that you praise your husband as your superhero for going out to get groceries. And then you called him COVID dad, which made me chuckle, just as a concept, but also because I know Sean and I just had this visual in my head. But he is a frontline worker. And I'm wondering, how has this experience impacted your relationships and also the way that he's perceived as a professional? I know my husband's a hairstylist and he is way more valuable right now. Just the way the dynamics are so different. And I'm sure it's this, well, I'm assuming it would be the same for your husband.
Yeah, it has been really interesting with Sean. I think that his work is frontline, but it's I guess a little bit more um it's one-on-one, and it's something that he can take the time, to be comfortable. He has the option to do virtual, so he does have some flexibility in that way. And he is COVID dad. Like, it's I you know it's funny
Mhm.
because he loves to go grocery shopping. He loves
Yes.
it,
Yeah.
and I cannot think of somewhere where I would rather, like, not want to be, and so I think it's been interesting in our household, to see, because prior to this, my lifestyle was very sort of interactive. I worked with lots of different people. I interacted with lots of different people throughout my day and my week. And Sean was a little bit more home based. And now that's really reversed. And I think I'm noticing that he really might be more extroverted than I thought, you know? And so it's been a big shift in our households, and I'm just so grateful. Early on, he said that he felt that I was a good apocalypse partner, and I thought, we've really taken our relationship to the next level. If you go out and buy the flour, I'll make the bread. How about we do it like that? so,
Nice.
so that's been good. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So you've expressed your love-hate relationship for social media and for Zoom. So I was curious about, do you spend more time, less time on technology, or have you just shifted sort of what you do while you're on?
I think I'm definitely spending more time on it. I think that the pandemic has helped us to maybe make use of some tools that we had access to before, but didn't have really the incentive to use to their full potential. And so it has been helpful in opening up opportunities. I used to spend a lot of my week in transit to various engagements, and that's really disappeared. And now we have technology based solutions, and that's fantastic. But we're also seeing the limitations of that, and that people talk about Zoom fatigue. I know for myself, I get to a point where I cannot take in any additional information through that format.
Mhm.
And I think the social media element has been interesting as well. A lot of people have commented, if this were even, 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't have those same kinds of opportunities to connect virtually that we do now, which has been really great in a lot of ways. But I did write a poem about doom scrolling, and I've definitely found that overuse of social media is an indicator of deteriorating mental health in myself, and I'm seeing it in my kids as well. And so I think, like all of these technologies and opportunities, it's there are benefits, and there are things that we really need to watch and be careful about. So it's not I just hope that we can take the good things and, better manage the bad things as we go forward. But yeah, it's like, I feel like there is a whole poetry collection just about Zoom meetings that could be created. Like, it's a
Yeah.
society unto itself, right?
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh. Yeah, yeah. So
Maybe that's your next collection is Zoom
yeah,
meetings
maybe.
in 17 syllables.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Good times. Yeah.
Good times. So you talk about the loss of connection and, craving the hugs and the loss of normalcy. At one point, you talk about missing your mug. I miss my travel mug.
I know, my
Um,
stupid mug. Ugh.
so
Why do
how
I
has
miss
this craving of connection and normalcy, how has it affected the way that you interact with the people in your bubble? Because those are the people that remain, right? That are still there.
Yeah. One thing it's taught me, like, I think that um what I've realized, so I'm isolated, but with four other people. Like, we're a small village in here, right? So I'm a little bit buffered from that loneliness that I think people are very vulnerable to at this time. But what I've realized is that just because you're occupying the same space for many, many hours in the day doesn't mean that you're connecting or that that connection is high quality.
Mhm.
And this is, I mentioned, my two older boys are teen and preteen, and especially at that age, it is hard to stay connected, and I'm not finding that any easier just because we're in the same space. I really have to work at it. We were in some really good habits of going for a walk every day, just me and the boys. A few months ago, we fell out of that habit, and so staying connected and just kind of trying to get a read, make sure that I have a good sense where they're at. It still takes work, and so that's been interesting. And also to realize that, as wonderful as they are, um, it is very enjoyable to spend time with these people, and I'm happy that I feel that way. I hope they feel that way. But our family, our community is so much more than just our family, and we need our friends, we need peers, we need elders, we need mentors, we need other children in our lives, we need colleagues. And so it does still feel thin, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
There are some lovely black and white photos of your three children in the book. And I'm wondering if you have noticed any differences in the way that each, because they're different ages, and then you have the daughter and the sons, have you noticed differences in the way that they're responding to the pandemic?
Yeah, they're all really different people. And of course, as you mentioned, they're at different phases in their lives too.
Mhm.
And I think by and large, they've all enjoyed the opportunity to be at home and to live a less hectic life.
Mhm.
And but it's they all really do need the connection, but I think they might have a hard time recognizing that themselves. So the return to school was difficult. That they were, the boys were not looking forward to it. They really preferred to be at home. My opinion of it was that they actually needed it more than they realized.
Mm.
And so that, I mean, now they're home again, so we'll
Happy
revisit that
days.
another time. But yeah, they're I would say that of all of them, my daughter would be the one I'd be most worried about in terms of being feeling confined or really having that deep craving on a day-to-day basis for social interaction with peers. But because she's so young, she's still like okay with still being at home and having her family as her main social community. So I'm just fascinated and curious about how they will look back on this time, and if
Mhm.
will they think about it as the best years of their childhood, or will it be the worst? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
It's a really profound thing that they're going through at a pretty tender age. So we might not have a handle on it for quite some time.
Agreed. I love the illustrations. throughout the book. How did your collaboration with Meredith Luce come about?
Totally organically, like everything about this project. Meredith and I are great friends. I just adore Meredith and her art. She is supremely talented. She can work in so many different types of media and styles and really excel. And you know this so well because you've
Yes.
also collaborated on a book project. She's so knowledgeable. Um, and so I was just writing poetry at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was kind of idly thinking, wouldn't it be fun, to try and put this into a book one day? And she reached out to me early on and said, "Hey, just FYI, I'd be happy to collaborate on something if you want to take this to the next level." And so we uh, she did start out trying to draw a drawing per poem. And anyway, that was really to be not feasible. Um,
No.
so it was really Meredith's concept to do the monthly illustrations in the lino cut style.
Mm.
And I just love that style for the project. The black and white is so stark. It's so evocative of different types of emotions and the different phases that we've gone through. So this volume came together pretty quickly. We probably met in late October, and that was when she first got the concept for the monthly illustrations and how it would be laid out kind of like a daily diary. And we started working on it, and it was pretty hectic for the for the first little while to try and get it out so people could have it for Christmas. But I'm just thrilled. I just think her drawings give a whole new life to it, and are she just sat down with the poems and looked at what happened in the month, like what the themes and ideas were in that month. And then she came up with a concept for every month that reflected some of those dominant topics. And it's a fascinating thing to watch, to be a bystander while an artist goes through that process.
Yes, especially with your poems.
Yeah, exactly.
Responding to your creativity with her creativity. That's really phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I mentioned this, and you didn't say anything about it, so I'm not sure now. But October 11th, there's this splash of color. There are these beautiful fall colors. All of a sudden, it's been stark. It's been black and white photos, black writing on white, and then you get to October 11th, and there's just this splash of fall colors, and it's so refreshing, and it gives you it's like inserting a little bit of hope. And so my question was that intentional?
Yeah, it was intentional, and I'm so glad that you noticed that. Yeah, it was.
Good.
And it is meant um, to create exactly that effect that you described. October was a really tough month for me, and I was trying to spend as much time outside and in the forest as I could. And I've always noticed this, and I know that lots of other people do too, but when those colors start to pop in the fall, it almost feels like somebody putting a cool cloth on your head, and
Mm.
it's so soothing, and it's so um uh relaxing and reassuring and so beautiful to see those colors. And so I wrote a poem about that, about how it feels to look up and see those colors, the blue sky with the reds and the yellows. And I took a photo, and my photos are not very good. So we thought, rather than trying to communicate that feeling with a not very good photo, Meredith said, we would use Meredith's style to try
Mhm.
and just pop that in there. And I hoped that it would remind people, like that it would connect with people's own experiences of the fall colors just being such a reassuring touchstone from nature. So yeah, it's I like the way that turned out as well. It's like a little bit of a surprise, like
Yes.
that just sort of gets you thinking along those lines about those colors.
I'm glad that was intentional because I was like, wow, that's it. I really felt as I turned the page, it was like,
Yeah,
color,
I
It's
I
almost
know.
like a grounding, you feel grounded
Yeah.
when you see that.
Hmm.
Um, you questioned whether we've learned anything as we were getting towards the end of the book. And there's also sort of a feeling of tension of, will we have another lockdown? Are we heading into another one? And I felt like that was intensified by the approach of winter, because you mentioned a few times, like, we're heading into this and you don't know, there's the unknown, right? Winter's coming. Are we going to be in lockdown? Have we learned a thing? And I'm just wondering how you feel about that now. What are your thoughts?
I think it was always really present for me while we were in summer that we were getting the privilege of being able to um, have some return of normal activities that might fool us into believing that the worst of it was behind,
Right.
and that all along, as we grab a beer with our friend on a patio, or go out for a walk, or have people over for an outdoor visit, all the while those things are normal physical actions we're going through, but in a very abnormal world. And that return of winter was always such a um, present yet distant threat, as we were going through those summer months. And I think that we none of us knew, right, what the second wave was going to look like and how bad it was going to be. But it was, I think, on your question of have we learned anything, there was kind of a double-sided question. One, what is it that we need to learn? And then maybe the more frightening question about, are we going to learn anything from
Yeah.
this? And that's something that I've really been struggling with a little bit on many levels with the pandemic. So I think it just those themes were really reflective of the reality that we were living through the summer and fall, which was that we can return to the things that might look and feel normal to us, but we are not done with this.
Mhm.
And you know there's always a sense of foreboding in a little bit of a way with winter and cold weather and darkness coming, and all of that really magnified by knowing that we were probably going to be facing a second wave.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, I read through the book, and there were so many. At one point, I was jotting down every poem I liked, and I was like, "I am rewriting her book. This I'm going to get like copyright infringement." So I just picked three that I really liked and sent you, and I was like, "These are three that really stood out for me." But as as the author of those poems, which ones are your favorite? Do you have favorites?
Well, Anne, I would like to say I'm so glad that you're the only person that has identified the one about the dream as a
Yes.
standout. That is my favorite.
Yeah.
The one that says, "I found a way out, but you must follow me now. Wait, that was a dream." And
I
I
just got chills everywhere. My hair just stood up again when you said it.
it's that one for me really expressed that whole idea that I was just saying about how summer was sort of a false pause
Yeah.
for the pandemic. And even as we were waiting to return, I think that one shows up towards like the beginning of September, and kids were returning to school. Everything sort of feels a little bit normal, except for everybody's wearing masks and the teachers are really stressed out. Like, you know, it was, it, it really was kind of the end of that, you know, thinking that we could maybe fool ourselves that this was all over, that there's a way out and it's just around the corner over there, but it's not. We're The way out is through. So here we
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
Yeah. There's another one that I like. And it says, well, there's many, but this is one of the ones that I had sent to you. To think all that time we sang together in cars, we were so high risk. And it just made me laugh. Just the thought of, it's something so mundane to just sit and sing in the car. But with the filter of what we're going through right now, it'd be like, never, just to give somebody a
I
ride
know.
in the car
It
is like,
is
oh, no.
droplet rainforest in there if you're singing in a car. But I wrote that one because it's see, like, I love to sing in cars.
Yes.
Anyone who drives with me will be singing or will
Yeah.
be listening to me sing. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those little moments that the pandemic has stolen from us. These little joys in life that now, looking at it through the lens of where are my droplets going,
Mm-hmm.
is completely off the table right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, it's I never, I'll just have to sing alone in the car now. I don't know, like,
Yeah.
it's really
And
quite
then
sad.
sanitize. Sing and
Exactly.
sanitize.
You can't sing with a mask on. It's just not.
No, no, you can't. You can't. It's not the same.
Yeah.
Before we're done, I just want to do a quick shout out to Chris at Koba Studios, because I saw that he was your ally in getting this book out there, and I know he is such a great person to go to, great resource out in Merrickville. So I just wanted to mention him before.
Yes, and I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, Chris at Koba Studios was so great in getting all these done. We originally told him we were probably looking at an order of maybe 60 or 70 books. It turned into an order of 250 books.
Wow.
Plus now he's working on the second run of 100 books. So he has been, like, essential. Chris
Yeah.
is essential.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic support from Koba Studios for sure.
Yeah, he was fabulous.
Hmm.
Congratulations on your book, you and Meredith and Chris. It's a wonderful book. I'm glad it's doing well and people are ordering it. And I know there are more poems being written. So if people want to buy the book, they go to Loose Ends. I'm going to put a link so people can follow it and order the book. But also they can follow you at Katie Nolan Author on Facebook and see what else comes up as we go through the second lockdown, right?
That's right. Yeah. If people want to see my daily poem, I'm still posting a poem every day. So that's on Facebook. My Katie Nolan Author page is where that's found. The book is no longer available through Loose Ends.
Oh, okay.
But the information is on my Facebook page about how to access it.
Okay, perfect. So they need to go to your Facebook page. And I like to have a peek. I don't know what it was you wrote earlier this week that I like, yes, I think it was about homework or something. And I wrote this big, like, yes, I feel it, because the
Was it about
homework,
was it about crying because you couldn't find the classroom link, the virtual classroom
something
link?
like that, just like, the whole online education thing.
Yeah,
I think that's the one.
bless those teachers. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you
And those
so.
frontline healthcare workers. Oh my gosh.
Yes. And the frontline workers.
Yes, our hearts are with you guys.
Yes, so much appreciation. Maybe a little bit late, but we do appreciate you more than
Yeah,
ever. Thank
exactly.
you so much for joining me today and sharing your work with me.
Thank you, Anne. It was so nice to talk to you.
Nice chatting with you as well.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.